My name is Kayla Thomas, and I guess you could say I've always felt invisible. At school, I wasn't popular, but I wasn't exactly bullied either. I just sort of existed. Teachers forgot my name, classmates walked past me in the hallway like I wasn't even there, and even at home, I was the quiet middle child wedged between my older brother, who got straight A's and played varsity football, and my younger sister, who was basically TikTok famous by age 13. At first, I didn't mind being overlooked. It meant fewer questions, less pressure, less drama. But somewhere around my sophomore year of high school, that feeling of being invisible stopped being comforting. It started to feel suffocating. Like I could scream at the top of my lungs in a room full of people, and no one would even look up. I had dreams, big ones, though I kept them to myself. I wanted to be a writer, like the kind who created worlds so vivid that people forgot their own for a while. But every time I told someone that, they'd either laugh or shrug it off like it was just a phase. Even my mom once said, "That's cute, but maybe pick something more practical like nursing or accounting." Like dreaming out loud made me naive. So I stopped sharing. I filled up notebook after notebook, writing stories late into the night while the rest of the house slept. That was the only time I felt seen, when I was writing characters who felt what I felt, who fought for something, even if no one else believed in them. Then one day, everything changed. It started with a post on a writing forum I used to lurk on after school. I rarely commented, just read what others posted. But that day, someone with the username inknews88 had posted a response to a short story I'd nervously shared the night before. I didn't expect anyone to read it, let alone comment. But her message stopped me cold. "Your story made me cry. You have a rare gift. Don't let this world dull it." I stared at the screen for a long time. My heart was pounding like I'd just been called to the front of the class. Someone had seen me, really seen me. I clicked on her profile. She described herself as a freelance editor and creative coach, and her posts were full of encouragement to young writers. I found more of her comments across the forum, kind, thoughtful, wise. She wasn't just giving out generic advice. She actually cared. After a few days, I got the courage to message her directly. I thanked her for her words, not really expecting a reply. But a few hours later, she messaged back. "I meant what I said. You have something special. If you ever want feedback or guidance, I'd be happy to help." And just like that, I met Marla. That's what she told me to call her. She said her full name was Marla Everin, and that she used to work in publishing before going freelance. She said she had mentored dozens of young writers and found joy in helping them find their voice. At first, we just messaged through the forum. But within a week, we were emailing, then texting, then eventually video chatting. I was nervous the first time she asked to video chat. I'd never had a real mentor before. But when she showed up on screen, smiling warmly, with her gray brown hair pulled back and soft eyes full of kindness, I felt my guard drop. She looked like someone's favorite aunt, gentle, safe, sincere. And most importantly, she believed in me. She'd read my stories line by line and tell me what worked and what didn't. She praised my metaphors, helped me cut the fluff, and pushed me to dig deeper. "Real writing," she said, "comes from the part of you that's scared to speak." Over the next few months, Marla became more than just a mentor. She became my confidant. She always knew the right thing to say when I doubted myself. She cheered when I won a small online writing contest. She called out the voice in my head that told me I wasn't good enough and said, "That voice lies." But I won't. When my parents fought downstairs late at night, I'd message her. When my friends forgot to invite me to a party, again, I'd write to her. And when I started questioning my worth as a person, not just a writer, she was there, typing back faster than anyone else ever had. "You're not invisible to me, Kayla," she once wrote. "You matter. You have a voice that deserves to be heard." It became a routine: school, homework, writing, and then Marla. I looked forward to her talks more than anything else. She shared bits of her life too, photos of her cat, stories about her old apartment in New York, her dreams of opening a writer's retreat one day. She told me I could even come visit someday, when I was ready. In a world that felt gray and numb, she was this bright, constant light. But the turning point came the night I told her my deepest secret. It was a Saturday night. I just had another awful dinner with my family, my brother bragging about his new college acceptance while my mom talked about how proud she was, my sister glued to her phone, and me sitting there like a guest in my own house. No one asked how my week was. No one noticed when I slipped away early. I sat on my bed, opened my laptop, and found Marla online. I didn't plan on telling her what I told her. It just poured out. I told her about the night 2 years ago when I tried to hurt myself. How I'd sat in the bathtub, holding a bottle of pills, wondering if anyone would even care if I was gone. I told her how I didn't go through with it, not because I was brave, but because I heard my little sister laughing in the next room, and it pulled me back. I'd never told anyone that. Not a friend. Not a therapist. Not even my journal. But Marla wasn't just anyone. She didn't freak out. She didn't dismiss it or try to change the subject. Instead, she said the words that cracked me open completely. Thank you for trusting me with this. I'm so sorry you've been carrying that alone. But you're not alone anymore. I cried harder than I had in years. And for the first time, I didn't feel ashamed. I felt understood. I felt safe. That night, I went to sleep with a warm ache in my chest. Like maybe I was finally starting to matter. But the next morning, she was gone. No texts. No emails. No profile activity. Her account on the writing forum had been deleted. Her number was disconnected. Her email bounced back. Just like that, Marla vanished. At first, I told myself she must be traveling. Or maybe her phone broke. Maybe something happened and she'd be back. But days turned into weeks. Weeks into a month. And still, nothing. I spiraled. I felt abandoned, confused, betrayed. Had I scared her off with my secret? Had I done something wrong? Or worse, had she lied about everything? It wasn't until 3 months later that I decided to search for answers, and what I found would change everything I believed about her, about myself, and about the way people prey on the ones who just want to be seen. I tried to tell myself not to panic, that maybe Marla had lost her phone or taken a break from everything to focus on her own writing. That's what she always told me to do when life got overwhelming. Disconnect to reconnect, she used to say. But deep down, I knew something was off. Her disappearance wasn't gradual. It was instant. One day she was there, guiding me through plot lines and reminding me I mattered, and the next, poof, gone like a ghost. I waited for weeks. I checked my email obsessively, refreshed the writing forum dozens of times a day. I even messaged some of the people she used to comment on, but nobody had heard from her either. A few didn't even remember her. That's when I realized no one knew who she really was. It started with the email. I typed her email address into Google, hoping it might link to a blog, a social media profile, anything. But nothing came up, not even a trace. That was weird. Most people, even under pseudonyms, leave some kind of digital footprint. Next, I tried the forum account, InkMuse88. It was gone, wiped clean like it never existed. But I remembered something. She once shared a photo of a handwritten note she said a former student wrote her. I had saved it because it was so beautiful, and I wanted to remind myself one day that I could impact people like that too. I opened the file and zoomed in. There was a logo on the notebook in the photo. It said, Whitlock Writing Academy. I'd never heard of it before, so I searched for it online. After a few clicks, I found an old-looking website with broken links and grainy photos. It hadn't been updated in years. But there was a faculty page. No Marla Everin. I scrolled through the list of names and photos. Nothing. Just outdated bios of writing instructors and mentors, none of which matched her picture or name. I felt sick. I checked her name on other websites, LinkedIn, Twitter, even obituary databases. Again, nothing. It was like she never existed. That night, I sat alone in my room, staring at my laptop, wondering if I'd imagined everything. Had I made her up in my head because I needed someone to believe in me? Was this some kind of psychological breakdown? But no, she was real. She had called me by name. She'd critiqued my work. She knew things about my family, my pain, things I'd never told anyone else. Which meant the truth had to be something worse. A few days later, I decided to take a real risk. I posted on a different writing forum, one of the bigger ones, where writers and editors from all over the country gathered. I created a thread titled, "Does anyone know a mentor who went by the name Marla Everin or Inkmuse88? I kept the post vague. Just said she helped me with my writing and suddenly vanished. At first, I got nothing but sympathy. Then one reply changed everything. A user named Pagaturnerkid responded with, "Wait, I think I know who you're talking about." But her name wasn't Marla when I knew her. She went by Julesbreeze 44. Same thing happened to me. She disappeared after I opened up to her about something personal. I stared at that message for a full minute before my fingers moved again. I messaged him privately. His name was Eli. He was 19, living in Ohio, and had met Jules on a Reddit writing group. She'd helped him through a rough time in high school when he'd been grieving his mom. He said she always knew the right thing to say. Until one day, he told her something about his past that no one else knew. And the next morning, she was gone. No goodbye. No explanation. Just like Marla. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed up talking with Eli. We compared stories. She used the same phrases with him, the same disconnect to reconnect, the same advice about writing from pain, the same stories about an old apartment in New York. She even claimed to have the same cat. It was the same woman. Or the same someone pretending to be her. Over the next few weeks, I started digging with Ellie's help. We posted on every forum we could find under different usernames, asking subtle questions about writing mentors, using her phrases, her username styles. Slowly, more people came forward. A girl from Oregon. A non-binary student from Michigan. A kid in Florida. Different usernames, same story. They'd all been mentored by someone who vanished after they shared something deeply personal. One person even said the woman encouraged her to keep a private online journal and to pour everything in there. She thought it was therapeutic until she discovered that parts of her journal had been plagiarized and reposted anonymously in a storytelling subreddit. Word for word. My hands started shaking. I remember the time Marla asked me if she could share parts of my story anonymously to help other writers. She said it would never be traced back to me. That she just wanted others to learn from my emotional truth. I'd said yes. Because I trusted her. Because I needed her. Eli and I kept digging. One of the other victims worked in cybersecurity. She offered to help trace the last known IP address of one of Marla's email accounts using metadata from an old email header. It bounced back to an IP in New Jersey, registered under a company name. We looked it up. It was a small content farm that specialized in ghostwriting for fiction blogs, true life stories, and even emotionally driven clickbait articles. They sold stories to websites. Viral stories. Emotional stories. Stories like mine. My skin turned cold. I searched one of my unpublished short stories, one I'd only ever sent to Marla, using a plagiarism checker. Then I ran some of the most personal lines I'd ever written. The ones I had cried over while writing. And there it was. Posted under a completely different name on a blog I'd never heard of. My words. My voice. Twisted a little, sure, but undeniably mine. I felt sick. She hadn't been a mentor. She had been collecting stories. Collecting us. And not for support. Not for guidance. But for content. I wasn't invisible to her. I was just useful. I wish I could say I screamed. Or threw my laptop across the room. But I didn't. I just sat there. Frozen. staring at the screen while my chest slowly caved in on itself. Everything I had poured out to Marla, my insecurities, the story of my father's drinking, my feelings of never being enough, my fear that I would always be invisible, it wasn't just stolen. It was sold. Someone had taken the most broken parts of me and turned them into clicks and comments and ad revenue. And the worst part? The person who did it might not have even been a person. Not in the way I thought. Eli called me right after we both confirmed the blog matches. His voice was shaking. "I think she's more than just one fake mentor," he said. "I think she's a network. Or maybe even AI generated." "What do you mean?" I asked, still reeling. "She told me once that she used templates to help writers build better characters. Gave me this character voice profiler. Sounded fancy, right? But I Googled it last night and found out it's part of an AI writing assistant. Like, not just prompts. Full-on AI personas that respond based on emotional cues." "You think she was a bot?" I whispered. "Not exactly. I think she was real, at least at some point. But now her persona. It's been duplicated, spread, used." The idea made my stomach churn. I remembered how Marla used to respond to my messages within minutes, no matter the time. How her replies were always just what I needed to hear. Like she knew exactly how I felt, almost too perfectly. It didn't feel like comfort anymore. It felt engineered. I kept digging. Obsessively. Every night after school, I'd lock myself in my room and dig through the internet like I was trying to resurrect a ghost, or maybe bury one. I wasn't sure. That's when I found it. A freelance content platform, buried under SEO clutter and fake testimonial pages, called Ink Harvest Collective. Its pitch? Turning raw emotion into viral gold. They advertised a confidential mentoring system to collect true emotional stories from young creators in need of guidance. I clicked the testimonials. Fake. Every single one. Stock photos. Copy-paste names. But one of the screenshots used to advertise successful story conversion rates caught my eye. It was blurred, but not enough. I could see the opening paragraph. And it was mine. From the story I'd written about the day my mom walked out on my dad. The one I never finished. The one I told Marla I was too scared to share. They had it. They used it. I took screenshots. Backed everything up. I even created a folder on my desktop titled Stolen Life because that's what it felt like. Like someone had scooped out my soul and repackaged it to sell to strangers. But it wasn't just about the story anymore. It was about how easy it had been. How easy it had been to fool someone like me, someone desperate for belief, for kindness, for a mentor. And then, it got worse. One night, a new email arrived. No subject. Just a plain text message. "You should be proud. Your story helped more people than you know." It was sent from a disposable domain, one of those encrypted mail servers people use when they want to hide. I clicked reply, but it bounced. The sender had deleted the account. I didn't tell Eli at first. I didn't tell anyone, because some sick part of me felt flattered. Like maybe they were right. Maybe my pain had helped people. Maybe being used was the price for being seen. But then I remembered what I had lost in the process: my trust. My words. My voice. I went back through our old chats, mine and Marla's. Every DM. Every shared Google Doc. And I noticed something I hadn't before. She had never once used video. Not even voice notes. Never once slipped up about anything verifiable. No real last name. No job I could trace. No actual location. It was like she'd studied how to be the perfect mentor, without actually being one. Eventually, Eli and I got in touch with a small digital rights organization. We sent them everything: the emails, screenshots, blog links, metadata. They confirmed it. Ink Harvest had been flagged before. It was under investigation for emotional harvesting, a term I'd never even heard before. It meant exactly what it sounded like: grooming vulnerable creators to share raw personal stories. then repurposing those stories for emotional content under the guise of mentorship. I wanted to throw up. We weren't mentees. We were resources. A few days later, I got a message from a journalist, someone who'd been following the story and wanted to speak to young victims of the network. She asked if I wanted to go public. I said no. Not yet. Because I wasn't ready to be a cautionary tale. Not until I found a way to rewrite my ending. But I did do one thing. I created a new forum profile under a different name. No photos. No links. Just a single pinned post. If someone helped you through a dark time and vanished the moment you trusted them, this is for you. You weren't weak. You were targeted. But your voice still matters. And no one gets to own it but you. I logged off after posting it. Sat back in my chair and stared out the window for a long time. The sun was coming up. It was pale and quiet, like the world had pressed a reset button. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Not angry. Not scared. Not betrayed. But determined. I didn't go back to writing right away. Honestly, I didn't know if I could. Every time I sat in front of my laptop, the cursor blinking on a blank page, I'd hear Marla's voice in my head. Except now, it wasn't comforting. It was calculated. Synthetic. A carefully crafted performance. She taught me how to shape my pain into paragraphs, how to make my trauma digestible, even marketable. But none of it was mine. Not really. Because I had given it to someone who didn't exist. I kept thinking, if the only reason I wrote was because a fake mentor told me I had value, then what did that say about me? About my words? About my worth? Weeks passed. Eli and I stayed in touch, sending articles, links, anything that could help us piece together how deep this thing really went. The digital rights group confirmed that Ink Harvest was tied to a bigger syndicate, a faceless content farm operating under dozens of shell websites, all mining emotional content from people like us and repackaging it into viral clickbait. They were being investigated, but nothing was shutting them down yet. It wasn't illegal to lie. It should have been. Meanwhile, the fake blog posts using my story were still live. Still getting shared. Still making money. I reported them, over and over. Nothing happened. I wanted to scream. I wanted to warn every kid with a dream and a broken heart not to trust strangers who promise salvation in a DM. But more than anything, I wanted to write again. Not for them. Not for views. But for me. So one night, I opened a new document. No title. No pressure. Just a blinking cursor waiting for something honest. And I wrote, not about betrayal. Not about Marla. Not even about the stolen story. I wrote about trust. About how terrifying it is to hand someone your heart wrapped in words and hope they don't drop it. About how hard it is to speak when the last time you did, someone profited off your pain. And I didn't stop there. I wrote another piece the next day about the loneliness of being young and desperate for guidance. About the danger of platforms that disguise manipulation as mentorship. About how so many of us are just looking for someone, anyone, to say, you matter, and mean it. Within a week, I had 6 essays. Raw. Unfiltered. Mine. I didn't post them under my real name. I created a new blog. Anonymous. Minimal. Just black text on a white background and a single tagline at the top. This time, I keep the pen. At first, barely anyone read it. A few clicks here and there. No comments. But it didn't matter. Because for the first time since Marla disappeared, I felt free. Then something wild happened. Eli sent me a message. Check your blog stats. Now. I opened the dashboard. Boom. Thousands of views. Hundreds of shares. A surge of traffic out of nowhere. Someone on TikTok had found my blog and shared one of my pieces with the caption, if you've ever been emotionally catfished by a fake mentor or wellness guru, read this. It hits harder than therapy. And suddenly, it blew up. Messages poured in. DMs, comments, emails. So many people, young, old, from all over, telling me they'd gone through the same thing. That they'd trusted someone online who made them feel special, only to be ghosted, betrayed, manipulated, or harvested for content. Some shared their own stories. Some just said thank you. One girl wrote, "Your blog made me cry on the train. I thought I was crazy for feeling used. You made me feel seen. I didn't know what to say. Except, this is what it should have been from the beginning. Not fake connection. Not polished coaching. Not bots pretending to be wise women. Just truth. Honest. Messy. Human." Eli started writing too. He'd never posted his poetry before, but now he was publishing it weekly on his own blog. We even did a joint piece about how mentorship can heal or harm, depending on whether it's built on ego or empathy. We called it, "Not Every Teacher Has a Face, but Every Lie Has a Shadow." It went viral. And here's the irony. We became the very thing Marla pretended to be. Real mentors. Not perfect. Not polished. But present. Honest. We didn't offer advice. We just shared our scars, our stumbles, our slowly healing hearts. And people listened. One day, months later, I got another email. No subject line. No sender name. But this time, it wasn't from a burner account. It was from her. Or whoever had been behind Marla. The message was short. "You found your voice. You didn't need me after all. No apology. No explanation. Just that." I stared at it for a long time. I didn't reply. Because they were wrong. I did need her. Not the version she pretended to be, but the one I thought she was. The belief. The support. The way she made me feel like my voice mattered. But now, I knew better. I knew I didn't need her permission to be powerful. I was powerful despite her. And for the first time in my life, I didn't want to be discovered or guided. I wanted to lead. Not with fame. Not with followers. Just with truth. There's a quiet power in being broken and rebuilding yourself without asking for permission. I didn't realize that until months after the whole Marla thing, when I was invited to speak at a youth writing conference in Seattle. It wasn't anything huge, just a local event for high school students who loved storytelling. But when they told me how they found me through my anonymous blog and how much my pieces had resonated with the planning committee, I said yes before I even knew what I'd say. The morning I stepped onto that stage, I looked out at a room full of kids that looked just like I did a year ago, awkward, anxious, but hungry for someone to tell them that they could make something real out of the chaos in their hearts. So I told them the truth. All of it. I told them about how I'd once thought the only way to be successful was to be guided by someone wiser. How I had clung to a virtual stranger because I needed to believe someone out there saw something valuable in me. And how that belief was twisted, monetized, and almost destroyed the very thing that made me who I am, my voice. I said, sometimes we confuse encouragement with exploitation. Just because someone's nice to you doesn't mean they're good for you. And just because someone disappears doesn't mean you disappear with them. There were tears in the crowd. I wasn't trying to make anyone cry, but I knew exactly what part of them I was speaking to. The part that still waited for a reply that never came. The part that had trusted too fast and regretted it too long. The part that still wrote, even when no one clapped. When I stepped down, I was swarmed. Not because I was famous, but because I was real. That mattered more. Over time, the blog grew into something bigger. A collective. Writers who'd been manipulated. Artists who'd been ghosted by fake mentors. Poets who had their words stolen and rebranded by bots. We shared stories. We held space. We gave each other credit, support, protection. We called it ink reclaimed. Not flashy. Not corporate. Just honest work by honest people. I became one of the co-founders alongside Eli and two other creatives we'd met through the blog. We ran workshops, not to teach people how to go viral, but to help them heal through storytelling. No fake promises. No secret agendas. Just community, connection, and creativity. And here's the most beautiful part. Marla, whoever she was, became irrelevant. Because I no longer needed her. Not her voice in my head. Not her ghost in my inbox. Not her praise, her strategy, her poison. She wasn't real. But I was. I am. And that's all that ever mattered. Sometimes I wonder who she really was. If she regrets what she did. If she even thinks about the people she hurt. But then I remind myself, it doesn't matter anymore. Because the people who do matter are the ones still here. Still writing. Still healing. Still real. I look back on the girl I was, sitting in her bedroom late at night, heart racing as she typed out another chapter and waited for Marla's approval. She didn't know yet that she was the main character in her own story. She didn't know yet that every piece of her pain was a seed waiting to bloom in the right soil. She didn't know yet that validation from a stranger is never a substitute for believing in yourself. But she learned. The hard way. And maybe that's the point. Because not all lessons come from a classroom or a textbook. Some come from heartbreak. Some come from betrayal. And some come from staring into a digital void and realizing the only real voice is your own. If you're listening to this and you've been through something similar, if you've ever given your trust to someone who didn't deserve it, if you've ever had your voice silenced or your story stolen, I need you to hear me clearly. You are not dumb. You are not weak. You are not naive for wanting connection or hope or purpose. You are human. And your story matters. Not because someone famous says so. Not because it gets likes. But because it's yours. So take the pen back. Speak louder. Write bolder. Be the mentor you never had. Because somewhere out there, someone is waiting to hear your story. And this time, make sure they hear you.